And these are the current problems. I can see that. The first thing is there are, and a number of people here might have been frustrated by some of this, that there are hold-ups with the preliminary application and getting the assessments done to get approval. And what's happened is that suddenly there might be dozens and dozens, maybe up 200 or 300 people suddenly wanting assessments and reviews on top of neurologic services around the country that are already struggling to keep up with what they're doing to start with. And it's not just a real problem finding clinic appointments. I got a note last week to say I have 120 patients delayed in assessment with no clinic slots to see people, and more than half of those are MS patients, and I'm not the only one. So all neurologists are struggling to find slots to see people to make the assessments. In addition to that, there are hold-ups with many need MR scans to demonstrate disease activity, and of people who've determined that they want fingolimod, the OCT, or ocular coherence tomography, which is a measure of the fluid in the eye before you start, is hard to get. So there are a whole lot of practical difficulties in getting people through the system at present. And I mentioned it's not Pharmac's, as I say, they're not holding it up, it's the practical systems in the hospital boards. And there are also the issues relating to people in the periphery. I mean, it's a problem in Auckland, but smaller centres where there is no neurologist based, trying to get systems in place where people can get infusions of Tysabri and so forth is also occupying a lot of time. Some are from other areas here. I think you would be much more conscious of that than we are in Auckland. There are other issues that are going to come up later too, which is going to pile on top of the new applications, which is we have to review everybody at a year, and particularly if you're on Tysabri, you need regular MR scans, you need regular blood testing for JC virus status, and all of this requires an immense amount of organisation. The MS nurses have been run off their feet trying to coordinate all of this. You have to have all of this in place so people don't drop through the cracks. There's a real danger that people are going to miss out on some of their follow-up assessments just because it's difficult to fit them in. The other problem is that with the new system, to get the new treatments, you have a special authority number for each individual treatment. And that expires after a year automatically. So there's no leeway. If you miss a follow-up appointment at a year, your treatment stops. Currently in the current program where Pharmac dishes out the current medicines, there's a bit of slack. If you miss your follow-up appointment at a year, Pharmac will keep on the treatment going till you get the application in. This is going to stop, and we're going to have fixed systems in place to make sure everyone gets assessed to get an application in for a new special authority number, or your treatment's going to stop. So there's going to be angst about that, I can guarantee it. So those are practical problems, and ongoing. They're potentially resolvable. They're just going to take a bit of time and, if I can say it, a little bit of patience on everybody's part to try and get the system to work. But there are unresolved problems that are not going to go away until Pharmac eases up some of its regulations, and they're the ones I've already alluded to. This having to stop before it's really medically appropriate is an issue that we're going to just keep pushing on. And a big issue, and this relates to some people here, is that Pharmac has been very specific about the criteria to get in, that you have to have clinically established relapsing multiple sclerosis. They've been very good about allowing people to have progressive disease as well, as long as you're having relapses. But their definition is clinically definite MS, which means more than one clinical attack. So they've specifically excluded CIS from this new treatment. And the reason for that is several-fold, partly a numbers game. There are a lot of people with CIS who've never had a second attack, so the numbers potentially would be higher. There's also the concern that they'll end up giving expensive treatment to people who don't actually have MS, and you may say that's trivial, that's ridiculous. You've had an attack, you've got scan changes that are characteristic of, we can diagnose MS on the McDonald criteria, but the fact of the matter is that this is a process that's more complicated than you might think. And I've had 3 patients in the last 18 months come from overseas on MS treatment who don't have MS. So they come to me and I say, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is you can't continue your current treatments here. The good news is you don't have MS. And they're not that pleased about either aspect, actually. And this is not a rare event, I think. And if you talk to experts overseas, I was talking to an authority at the Cleveland Clinic 6 months ago, and he said he sees MS almost exclusively, so he's seeing lots of MS people every week from all around different parts of the Midwest. He says he sees more than one patient every week who comes to him for a second opinion who doesn't have MS and is on treatment. So there are a lot of people out there with some funny symptoms and a few minor changes on the brain scan, which we all get actually as we get older. Misinterpreted as MS end up on treatment costing $70,000 a year in the US, and potentially a bit risky as well. Pharmac is conscious of this, but I think they've gone a bit far. We think that people who have CIS and then have evidence on MR scan where they have characteristic changes of MS, so everyone would agree this is early MS, and they have new lesions on the scan, on a follow-up scan, this group, about which there's been a lot of angst in the last 3 months or so, should be on treatment. Pharmac, though, is specifically said they won't be available for treatment as things stand. You have to wait for a second clinical attack to get treatment. So we're still discussing this. We've sent in appeals about this, but they haven't responded positively as yet. But for some here, I think there are some here in that situation, that's the explanation that your neurologist may have said to you that you're not severe enough or you don't qualify for treatment, even though you've been diagnosed as having MS on the basis of the one clinical attack and the characteristic changes on scan, including a follow-up. So that's another unresolved issue. And that was all I was going to say formally, but I'm happy to take more questions.
Eddie, could I just say that the MS Society is very aware of the issues that you and Jenny deal with on a daily basis, and we've had a number of people distressed. And so that the MS Society is in communication with the powers that be at ADHB, who tell us at this stage it's not a resource issue, it's a process problem, to which we disagree. However, there are signs that they are prepared to work with us. The MS Society has said that we're prepared to look at funding an additional MS nurse at the hospital for a period under certain circumstances to help the resource issue. We haven't been taken up on that offer at the present time, and we would need to organise our funding for that. I see the Treasurer there going pale, Peter, but we'll find the money from somewhere if they take us up. But well, that's an option, but drug companies funding DHBs is not an option for the DHB. So, but I just want to make the point that we are aware of it. If you are having problems, please communicate with your field worker because they are providing information to us, and we will be sitting down with the DHB and working through processes that we can help, because I think that the Society has got some options to assist in the problems. But we're very, very aware that it's an issue. Not quite so aware whether in places like Northland Gay or New Plymouth, where the neurology service is provided from Auckland Hospital, whether that's the same issue. But if people from those areas have got issues and want to provide information into us, we'll take those up as well.